Hello and welcome to Straight Talk with Arun Kumar. Today's topic is about politics, and my guest tonight is Billy Prempeh from District 9 of the state of New Jersey. Hello, Billy. How are you?
I'm doing good, Arun. It's good to see you again, man.
Yeah, nice to see you. I see a big smile on your face. So your
Yeah,
campaign is going well, huh?
it's going pretty good. It's been a lot of fun thus far. And when we first met, I believe that was February of this year.
Yep.
I was just getting started in my campaign. I was just finding my feet. We had a really good conversation about the direction of the Republican Party and what's going on in our state and our country as a whole. And thus far, I've already won the Republican nomination on July 7th. And a lot of things have been moving forward in really positive light. I mean, there's a lot of people in the community that want to help with my campaign, and not just the campaign, because there's a lot of things that I want to do in my city, in my district, and the state as a whole, because we got a lot of problems going on here in the state of New Jersey. It's getting very expensive, and it's a place that a lot of people don't want to live anymore. These liberal policies have really torn our state apart, and I'm looking to do something different. I wanted to step up and offer another alternative, because for over 50, almost 70 years, the state of New Jersey has been predominantly a Democrat, especially in my city here in Patterson. Ninth District's been has been predominantly Democrat for the longest, and we haven't seen any positive upside to that. So what I want to do is I want to bring some new ideas and bring some of the conservative values back to the city of Patterson, as well as the Ninth District, because we've been going down the same road for so long, and there's no benefit from it. So let's do something different.
Great, great. I see you're excited already.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of stress, but it's a lot of fun.
You're answering a lot of questions even before I ask them. So I see that excitement.
Yeah, man.
You look well prepared. So before we get into the policies and the issues and the demographics, what's your background? Who's Billy?
So for those that have not met me yet, my name is Billy Prempeh. I'm 30 years old. I'm a resident of Patterson, New Jersey. I've lived here for over 30 years of my life. And my parents, they came to this country in the mid to late 1980s, and they decided to become citizens of the United States and live the American dream. They came from Ghana, West Africa, where they were going through some very serious situations. They had a very bad poverty situation that they couldn't deal with there. And at the time, the only option they had was to go to the United Kingdom, work and save up, but eventually come to the United States and eventually create me and my brother and my little sister. For over 16 years, for the first 16 years of my life, my parents worked really hard to help develop the paperwork and get the visas in order so that the rest of our family from Ghana can come to the United States legally, and they come here the right way. So in the United States, I've got about 13, almost 14 relatives inside of the United States that came through the immigration process. And let me tell you, it was very expensive, because if it wasn't so expensive, myself, my brother, and we would have been able to go to college. My little sister is the only one who was able to get
legal immigration, huh?
Legal immigration. No fence hopping. Yep. or any of that stuff. Like, I understand there's people that are going through poverty and very bad situations at home, but my family was going through a situation so bad that we had over 13 of our relatives. In fact, let me backtrack. I'll give you a little bit of a story here, because I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people that are listening to this that can also relate to what my family went through, because I'm pretty sure there's other people in the Asian community that have been through the same thing. My mother, when she was growing up, she grew up, pretty reasonably wealthy, right? Her father owned one of the largest cocoa plantations in Ghana. However, when he passed away, he gave all of his assets and everything that he owned to his estranged stepchildren that he never knew. So literally everything, the home, the money, everything went straight to these stepkids. And they made my mother's life hell. They took everything that they had, and it was my mother, her mother, my grandmother, two of my uncles, two cousins, and a few nephews and nieces. They had to go and live in a kitchen that was about 14 by 14, 15 by 15, this kitchen. They removed the stove, removed the fridge, and just kind of set up cots. And they were all living in this area. They lived in there for about 10 years. While they were living in this area, my mom sold everything that she had. When she was 18 years old, she sold everything that she had and moved over to the United Kingdom. Initially, she bought 2 plane tickets for herself and her older brother and said, hey, listen, let's go to the United Kingdom. And for those of you that don't know, in the United Kingdom initially colonized Ghana a very long time ago. They colonized Ghana. So it was quite easy for Ghanaians to become become English. She went there and worked in the 80s. And if you were there, the economy was very terrible. And after saving enough money, she came from England with my father. After they met, they moved to the United States, and they started this life that we have here today. And they worked really hard to give us the life that we've got. So when I was 16 and my father passed away, was very difficult to make ends meet. Remember, over the past 16, 17 years of my life, we've spent almost all of our money bringing our family to the United States. So we couldn't afford to go to college. You know, the following year, I would have been graduating high school. And my younger sister, she was still very young. My older brother, he already finished school, but didn't have money for a scholarship or anything. So he just went straight to work. I went to a community college in Patterson, PCC, for a little bit. And I couldn't do it. We couldn't make ends meet. We couldn't pay bills. And I just was not able to grasp the information that they were teaching me in school. It just didn't seem like something that was going to push me in the right direction. And I decided that, well, you know, I love this country. I love everything that it's done for me, what it's done for my family. And if it wasn't for the United States, I probably wouldn't even exist. And if I did exist, I'd probably be in a very dire situation back home. So I was thankful for that. And I decided to sign up for the United States Air Force, where I began to serve in my country as a aerospace ground equipment mechanic. And I did this working in Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas, as well as RAF Mildenhall, Royal Air Force Station, Mildenhall.
Were you ever in McGuire? Because I go there quite a few times.
No, I wasn't. I never had the chance to go to McGuire. Well, I visited McGuire. I've been to McGuire, but I wasn't stationed there. I was only stationed Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas and RAF Mildenhall in the United Kingdom, which was kind of ironic because before, when I was in the military, I was thinking something in my soul just told me I'm going to end up going to England because my family, I don't know, my family, they started in England. So I felt like, you know, how funny would it be if I end up in England? And I was like number 9 of my choices of bases that I wanted to go to. And out of all the people on our flight, it was about 60 people in our flight. It was me and 2 other people were the only ones that went to England. Everybody else went to North Dakota, like where it's freezing out there. So that's a little bit of my background. Now, I'm assuming you're going to lead into what's got me into politics. Why did I decide to get into politics? Yep. Well, to be fair, my entire life, I've always been involved. Well, not involved, but I've always paid attention to politics. And I owe a lot of that to my father. Because when my father came to this country, he didn't even teach us our native language tree. I understand it, but I cannot speak it. My father wanted to raise us as Americans. And he just used that this is where we are. This is our new life. We're Americans here. So
this is where you're born.
Right. So he always instilled that in us, and he always paid very close attention. He was the type of man who was a very hard worker, but he didn't speak much. But when my father did speak, it was always something that was important. It was always something that you knew you had to pay attention to. And it was around 2001, actually. I was 11 years old when 9/11 happened. And the first thing that he did was, shortly after this, I couldn't wrap my mind around what just happened here. Like, United States, you've just been attacked. Like, this is like a movie kind of situation. And he said, you know, I want you to go watch this documentary. It was a very lightweight documentary, Fahrenheit 9/11. And from that point on, it kind of just started leading me down the path of questioning, how could something like this happen to the greatest nation in the world? And I just wanted to get to the bottom of it. So I started learning about many, many, many different topics regarding the inception of our country and how we got to this specific point. And, you know, you fast forward to 2020, January 28th, President Donald Trump has the Trump rally in New Jersey, which, let me tell you, it completely blew my mind because it was not what I expected. I was expecting a completely different experience. I was expecting a place like New Jersey, maybe 10,000 people show up and, you know, probably some fights, and none of that happened. When we got there was probably about 150,000 people that showed up. It was freezing. It was like 27 degrees, and all these people still showed up. It was one of the largest Trump rallies that the president has done. And seeing what this man was able to accomplish, I said, here's a guy who came out of nowhere, isn't a politician. He's a businessman, 0 days in politics, comes in.
I think that's when Van Drew switched to Republican.
Correct. Party, yeah, right? and Van Drew made an appearance at that event. And when I saw this, I said, listen, this is a guy who has no real experience in politics, yet he was able to fully fund permanently the historically black colleges, put in place prison reform that Barack Obama and Biden have been kicking down the road for the past 8 years and did nothing with. He got that done. He's cracking down on human trafficking more than any other candidate I've ever seen in my entire life. And that's something that's very big to me, like human trafficking and human slavery. That's something that I absolutely do not tolerate. And seeing how this president has really cracked down on that, it really means a lot to me. You know, seeing how our economy has dropped, it's the lowest unemployment for all people across the board, not just, you know, whites or African Americans. Everybody was doing great. Tax cuts for the middle class. And I said, all of these things were done. And at this time, it was just 3 years into his presidency. How could this guy accomplish this in 3 years? But we've had politicians that'll do a full 8-year stretch in politics and get absolutely nothing accomplished. And at that point, I realized, man, if this guy is able to do this out of nowhere, and I believe what I believe, I'm pretty sure I can do a little bit better. And at that same time, Dr. Hector Castillo, who was another candidate who was running it for Congress in the 5th district,
Yep.
he pulled me to the side and he said, "Hey, Bill, I heard you talking with a lot of the people out here. It's like, you know a lot of stuff. I didn't know you knew all these kind of things." And he says, "I think you should run for Congress. Run for Congress in the 9th district. I ran there before, and I know exactly what the situation is, how the political landscape works. I'll guide you through the process. You can do it."
Yeah, let me interrupt you there. When the lady talked to you about running for Congress, why Congress? Why not Assembly or State Senate or?
So, and that's something that a lot of people have told me my entire life. They say, "Hey, Bill, you should run for city council or even at the highest level, mayor."
And then go step by step up the ladder or something like that.
Right. Yeah. The reason why I chose not to do that is because first off, I'm a very big thinker. I always like to think in advance and think for the future and what else could possibly be done. And I knew that if I were to run for council in Patterson or run for mayor in Patterson, I would face a tremendous amount of opposition because it is completely controlled by the Democrats to the point that they start eating themselves. You see what happened in Patterson, the council election. It was three contested races where there was a bunch of voter fraud to the point that the president of the United States called it out on national television. They will even attack their own. So I knew that I was not going to make any of the positive inroads as a councilman. Even if I became councilman inside that city, I'm subject to being overridden by these other Democrats that do not want to change. They just want to sit in position, continue to raise taxes and keep the agenda going. So I knew that wasn't going to be a positive move for me forward. So I said, you know what? When he brought up Congress, I was initially scared because I thought, this isn't local office. This is a whole different ballgame. We're talking federal here. The whole country applies to this. But I've already fought for this country. I've already put my life on the line for this country. I know what it means to actually put service before myself. And a lot of the things that I believe in can help here in the inner cities. They can help in our district, but they can also help our country as a whole. And I know that if these things were implemented, we can really, really, really change our country. And it's not just me. There's other people, other candidates that believe the same things that I do.
Yeah, let me ask you this question then. You're a Trump supporter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. So how do people look at it? Because there's a narrative there, or there's a narrative from the Democrats that Trump is a racist, Trump is a fascist, Trump is this, Trump is that. So if that's the case, and you're supportive of President Trump, how does your community or your district in general look at an African American, which is you, supporting President Trump? How do they take it?
Here's the funniest thing, and it's funny because I met with a community leader earlier today in Patterson, and from Patterson. He came to my workplace, so we had a conversation. We spoke about this, and it's the same thing. The thing is, for example, let's talk about the Black community in the inner city because I think it's the most important here right now. They honestly do not care. They don't care at the fact that I support Donald Trump. Like, oh, you like Donald Trump? I hate his guts. They don't care about that because at the end of the day, there's one of two things that I met with. One, why do you support Donald Trump? Or I don't like Donald Trump at all, but I respect your decisions. Right. It's either I don't like him at all, but I respect you, or why are you Republican, or why do you support Trump anyway? It's more of curiosity rather than disrespect. Most of the disrespect, in fact, not most, literally all of the disrespect that I've ever gotten in this race, running as a Republican, running as someone who supports President Trump, has come from white liberals, young millennial white liberals. Those are the ones that are really saying the racist things, calling me Uncle Tom, calling me the N-word, doing the worst kinds of things to me on social media and in person. The people in the inner cities, Hispanics, the Arabics, the Indians, the African Americans, they don't give me a hard time. In fact, they want to know why. Because it's something, I'm an anomaly. I'm not the kind of person you would expect to be a Republican.
Shocking. That's contrary to public opinion.
Exactly. And when they see that, when they actually start to hear what I'm talking about, right? And that's what I think and I think that's great. And I'm glad that I've been able to get that kind of reception because people ask me, well, why do you support him? And when I start talking about my ideas for police reform, or why I support school choice, and why I support the prison reform, and all these different things, they start to see, oh wow, a lot of what you're saying makes sense. And you speak to the average person, Hispanic, African American, or even Indian, Arabic community, all of them have one thing that's at their core. They all have a very central belief in family. They have a very central belief in their creator and God. They have a very central belief in, being able to protect your family and provide for your family. They have a very central belief in a lot of these things that conservatives share as well too. But we've been told over and over and over and over again for decades, we've been conditioned to vote Democrat. Vote against our values. Vote against the things that are actually going to help us move forward. So when people
do you get any flack because you are a Republican and not a Democrat?
Not at all.
But since you're not white, you're supposed to be a Democrat and not a Republican?
Not from the Black community, not from the minority community, I should say. You know, it's not the minorities are not giving me a hard time. They want to know, or they don't like it and respect it, but they like my ideas. You know, I don't like Republicans, I don't like Trump, but I like your ideas, and that's cool enough with me. Because at the end of the day, what makes the country move forward is not the president. The president can only do so much. He works on a federal level. Yep. Things really change on a local level. Council, mayor, congressman, freeholder, senator, things like that. That's what actually moves the state forward. When the states move forward, the country moves forward, and the president can get his job done the way that it needs to be done. What the Democrats are doing right now, though, instead is they don't want you to focus on themselves. They don't want you to focus on what's going on in the district. They want you to focus on what the president is doing. Congressman Pascal, for example, you go down to social media, you look at any of his posts, you look at any of the articles or any of the press releases he makes. I can guarantee I will put $1,000 on the table right now. Almost every single time, it's about President Trump, never about what's going on in the district, never what's happening.
Yeah, just to my viewers, Bill Pascrell is the current incumbent in District 9, the state of New Jersey. So, you know, where he's Billy, my guest opponent, right?
That's and you know something funny. You know something funny about that is when I was a kid, just to kind of give you an idea of how old I am and how long Bill Pascrell's been in office. As a child, I'm talking like 5-6 years old.
A decade, right? Almost a decade, for a decade now.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, as a kid, people would call me Bill Pascrell just to be funny, because as a kid, my name's Billy Prempeh, Bill Pascrell. You see his name, hey, look, it's Pascrell. You know, which nobody has any clue who Bill Pascrell is. They just see his name all over the place. Not in a million years that I think fast forward, 26 years into the future, I'd be the Republican frontrunner about to go against him and take his seat and challenge him. But, it's funny how the tables turn.
Well, yeah, let me ask you about the Republican Party, right? So you had a primary.
Right.
A primary, and you had to get past the primary phase before getting general elections. How was that phase? How did you feel about primary elections?
The primary elections was pretty interesting. I knew I was going to win the primary for a few key reasons. My opponent eventually ended up dropping out of the race. Well, he announced that he was dropping out of the race, but he didn't formally drop out. He felt at last minute he could still make a chance and win this, and he ended up sticking around, so he didn't properly drop out. But I felt that I was going to win for a few reasons. When the first time I went to the Republican organization in Hackensack, and I met with a lot of the leaders in the local community, and I'm sitting down the entire time, and when I announced to one person that I'm running in the 9th district, like everyone's face just lit up, like, oh my God, like you're the guy that we need, because the opponent that was running in the 9th district, I can't speak for him. This is just from the outside looking in, from what other people have said and what I, at this point, kind of believe the case was. He didn't really have any intention of winning. He was running for nostalgic reasons. He knew that nobody was going to go and challenge Bill Pascrell. In fact, he doesn't live in the 9th district at all. He lives all the way in Ramsey in the 5th district.
Wow.
But he didn't want to run in the 5th district because there's a bunch of heavy hitters running in the 5th right now. And, now that's over with. Yep. So he figured he could just go in and walk. So people didn't really have confidence in this guy to begin with. But then here comes, a minority from the inner city who's lived in the inner city for over 30 years of his life, Air Force veteran, first generation American, his parents just came from Africa. You know what I mean? So it's like there was a lot of things that just kind of and he's a conservative living in one of the most Democrat cities in
what's wrong with you, Billy? Why conservative? What's wrong with you?
Exactly. So it's like, where did this guy come from? And shortly after that, a lot of people started giving me their support. The COVID thing came, blindsided a lot of us, and I think the race could have probably went a little bit differently if it wasn't for the COVID situation. But with that being said, the primary is said and done now. That's behind us.
Did you come across any racism or anything like that? Because there's a notion out there that Republicans are against diversity.
Not at all. In fact, it's actually the complete opposite. Republicans are very desperate. They won't come out and admit it, but Republicans are very desperate for diversity. And the reason why I say that is because the Democrats have been very successful at convincing the average person that the Republican Party is racist, okay? And that's not true, because if you want to look at some of the strides that the Republican Party has done, is that the Republican Party was originally the Whig Party, and it
Yep.
eventually converted into the Republican Party after the election
Yep.
of Abraham Lincoln. And tirelessly, they fought to end slavery, to end segregation. They stood up against the KKK. Thousands of them were lynched.
In fact, they were against slavery.
Yeah, they were totally against it.
They were against.
They were against slavery. Lots of them got killed. Most of these people, white, were killed and hung for defending the African Americans and trying to help get them the rights that they have. The first 22 African American senators and congressmen, respectively, 22 congressmen and senators, respectively, were all Republican from the times of 1836 to 1862. This entire time, they've all been here. The first African American congressperson wasn't until 1963. The first African American senator wasn't until 1993. I was 3 years old when the first African American senator was elected.
Yep.
Right? Democrats created the KKK. They created the Red Line, which prevented minorities from getting housing in the suburban areas. They wanted segregation. They didn't want to unify the military. They wanted the Jim Crow laws. They helped found the KKK. And you mean to tell me that this is the party that stands for African Americans? The same party that puts forth Planned Parenthood and puts these abortion clinics all inside of the inner cities so that we can kill our own children and that they can continue to prosper. You don't see these in the suburbs. The Democrats are doing literally, there's not a single policy, and I'll say that with confidence, there's not a single policy that the Democrats or the left have put in place that has actually benefited minorities. Sure, it'll benefit you in the short term. Like, let's say someone will say, oh, what about equal opportunity? The equal opportunity laws gives everybody an opportunity, right? And that's not necessarily true, because I firmly believe that someone should be able to get something purely based off of merit. What a lot of people don't know is like a lot of these colleges, they reject a lot of Asian applicants because of these equal opportunity laws. This guy's too smart, even though he's a minority. This guy's too smart. You have to get to the back of the line. Another minority, African American or Hispanic, needs to go and take that position, and they may not even be well equipped or prepared to even handle this situation. Because if you had the merit, you'd get there. So they do things to set us up for failure, and at the same time, they try and tell you that we're doing this for the benefit of your own good, and it does nothing for us.
Right. So it's funny you mentioned COVID. So how do you think COVID has impacted or affected your campaign style?
So COVID has I wasn't expecting it, and nobody really anticipated something like COVID was going to happen. You know, I had plans for going out, going door to door, meeting with people, doing a lot of large gatherings, but most of what I've had to do has resorted to online. A lot of it marketing, doing phone calls and reaching out to people on that level. And that kind of works, but that can only get you so far. It's really helped with getting the word out very quickly and very fast. So it's to the point where I'm walking in public and people can kind of say, hey, that's the guy. I know him. He's the guy from online. And that kind of works out. But it's much different than an actual in-person, face-to-face kind of situation. And seeing how they did the whole vote by mail thing, which I still don't fully, I totally don't agree with it. Because even during the primary election, they didn't count all the ballots. There's still ballots that haven't been fully counted in the state county. They said, okay, well, Billy, you won. Great, but I still want to know the final number, as well as a lot of people. And if we're going to have to count on this moving into the general election November 3rd, I'm very uncertain about the accuracy as to who's going to win, whether it's President Trump or anybody else. It could swing either which way, you know. And because nobody can actually go into these voting booths and vote on their own, I feel like that opens up the door for a lot of fraud, and that's something I'm totally against. I don't really want that.
Yeah. So you've been touring a district. You've been talking to people. What are some of the primary concerns the residents of your districts have?
So some of the primary concerns that a lot of the people, one of the number one, let's start with the number one thing. The number one thing that a lot of people have been speaking with, and that's not just in Patterson, this is all over the place, is police reform. A lot of people seem to be very focused on the police reform, and a lot of that has to do with the George Floyd situation that just recently happened. And a lot of them are actually terrified, because you can see in a lot of these Democrat states are saying, let's defund the police. We got to get rid of the police, and we got to, whatever solution comes after that. And they don't really have one. And people are afraid, rightfully so. They're terrified. I don't believe defunding the police is going to fix the problem. I don't believe getting rid of them and, you know, giving guns to the community and having them police themselves is going to fix it. I understand why police officers do what they do and why they have the job that they have. Are there police officers that do very bad things and go against the oath? You better believe it. Absolutely. There's bad people in all branches of government, in all aspects of life. There's always bad people.
There's bad people everywhere, in every field. Every field is bad people.
Here's the problem, though. And this is the problem that I haven't seen a single politician bring up. The problem is not systemic racism. And that's what the left would try and tell you, like, oh, it's systemic racism. Because if you look at the stats, these police officers are killing white people just as, if not more, than they're killing African Americans, all right? Because if that's the case, that statistic wouldn't add up. So it's not systemic racism. It's an abuse of power problem, right? And it's more than just an abuse of power. The number one problem that they're facing is accountability. There is no accountability. If something bad happens to somebody, right? I'll give you a perfect example. In the city of Patterson, New Jersey, we had a guy named Jameek Lowry. He goes into the police department, he's distressed, and he's so terrified that he gets on Facebook Live and starts telling the police officer, he's telling people on the live, like, these cops are going to kill me, they're going to harm me. You know, they had me working with them, and now they're going to turn on me. Once his camera comes off, the next thing you know, this guy's in the back of an ambulance. The next thing you know, his face is all swollen up. They beat him up. The guy's dead. They do an investigation. We found no wrongdoing. Case closed. How can you find justice from when you have a police department where you're supposed to be getting justice from, and they're investigating themselves, and they're the ones who potentially committed this crime? How can you actually get any accountability? Even if they didn't put hands on this guy, right? I'm going to play devil's advocate for the police here. Even if they didn't put hands on this guy and something completely unrelated happened to him, how can they prove it when you were the ones that investigated and you were the last people that were with him? It's impossible to believe you, even if you're telling the truth.
Right, that's right.
So,
what other issues did you find?
So, hang on. Before you get to that issue, I want to just touch on something. Here's how I feel we resolve that problem. The way that we resolve that problem and get these police officers to hold each other accountable is an idea that I created. It's called the JARO bill. It stands for the Justice and Accountability Reporting Officers Act. And what this bill does is it's going to create a national police department that will be responsible for investigating municipal and state police officers. So if something like this happens, the people in the community, just like we have local elections for freeholder and mayor and so forth, there will be a community safety advocate. In this case, that's what we're calling them for now. That will be elected to this position, who will act as the liaison between the police officers, the Department of Justice, and the people of the community that they've been elected to.
Well, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, because if something like this happens, someone in the community, they'll go and speak to this community figure. If they can handle it on their own and get to the bottom of it, they will. But if they need the Department of Justice to get involved, these officers that work for the Department of Justice, they have no allegiance.
Kind of like a disciplinary committee or something like that.
I would say more like the police for the police, like right. The FBI essentially, right? But their job is
policing the police.
Correct. Their job would be to police the police officers. All right. If this community advocate said that you did something wrong, just like the FBI, they should have the ability to subpoena anybody they want into the court. They should have access to any of the information or evidence that they like, and they'll be able to do their own investigations. Now, if a police officer is found to have done something guilty, whether it's something as simple as stealing 50 cents from somebody's pocket, or you beat somebody up and you killed the guy, that police officer should do a minimum of 15 years in prison. And the reason why I say that is, and a lot of people say that's harsh, but you'd be surprised, a lot of police officers actually agree with me. And the reason why is because if your job is to uphold the law, if anybody's going to get the penalty from the law in the most worst way, it should be a police officer. Because if you're the one that's responsible for dishing this out, you got to be able to handle it, which means you have to be held to a different standard. You got to be held to a much higher standard. Now, in order for, and what this also does is it creates accountability, whether the police officers want to be accountable or not. A lot of people say that this is a myth or it's true, and it doesn't even matter. They say that there's a lot of police officers that will keep their mouth shut and they won't snitch on the next police officer and throw them under the bus, or the police chief will protect them. If that's right. What's going to happen. Right.
Yeah, we're running out of time. You have 5 minutes, but I'll let you finish that thought.
Gotcha. So, all right, so let's wrap that up. If these police officers are caught doing something wrong, you try and cover for this guy, all of you go down. So there's only two options now. You either do the right thing, or you get caught, or you quit. 3 things, I should say. All right. What are those 3 things? If you don't, everybody else goes down. Let the police continue to do their job, but someone needs to be able to watch after them. And that's how I believe we fix that, rather than defunding the police.
Well, that's a great thought, though. That's a great suggestion. There you go. That's called solving districts' problems.
Yeah. Well, it's a national problem, because this goes on all over the country.
Yeah. So how do you plan on taking on Bill Pascrell, who has around 10 years of experience in winning elections, not just running, just winning elections?
So the way that I'm going to win the election, is actually going out and reaching out to the people, educating the people, putting information out there. That's why I do a lot of these videos and I do a lot on social media, because I want to speak with people, let them know what I'm about and see what I'm trying to do for the area.
But you
The
can't
bill
go out now with the current situation. You cannot go out.
Right. I can't now, but there's a lot of people that are out spreading the information, spreading the word. We're making phone calls, sending out mailers, putting signs up. We're doing all kinds of things in the area. Now, Bill Pascrell, on the other hand, he's just focusing on bashing the president. So he's making himself a target at this point. He has no ideas. He has no solutions to deal with the drug problem or how to deal with the police problem or even how to deal with the rising taxes or the school choice situation. He has none of these problems. So it's going to become a situation of compare and contrast. I'm going to vote for this guy, Pascrell, because I've known him for the past 23 years. I'm going to vote for the new guy who actually has ideas, right? So I've been trying to challenge Bill Pascrell for days now. And if any of you voters are out there and you feel the same anger that I do, tell Pascrell, let's have a debate. I've been trying to get this guy to sit down and talk. Let's have a debate. Let's put our ideas on the table because I actually live in the city he claims to be from. He says he's from Patterson. He's totally forgotten this city. We're out here falling apart. He's over here kissing up to the larger to the special interest groups and doing nothing for us. Let's debate about it and put our information on the table and see who's got the better ideas. He doesn't want to do that, and that's fine. And that's how I'm going to win this election, reaching out to the people because he's not doing that.
All right, finally, give me 3 reasons why I should vote for Billy.
Why you should vote for me? Number one, the current congressman has been here for 23 years, has done absolutely nothing for us. Second, I'm a big proponent of term limits. If you don't like me, I have no intention of being in Congress for more than 8 years. And I believe that every person that goes into Congress or any political office should follow that same exact standard. I'm not in this for the money. I'm not in this for the ego or the personal game. I genuinely, really, really do care about my district and I want to see it better, right? The third reason why you should vote for me is because I actually have ideas. All right. I implore all of you to go to Bill Pascrell's website, find out what his ideas are, find out the reasons why you should choose him over choosing Billy Prempeh. What you're going to find is you're going to hear him say that he's a supporter of the Green New Deal, which is going to bankrupt a lot of Americans and create these jobs that are not going to lead to anything. He claims to be Black Lives Matter. He's been in position for 23 years, and there's been crazy amounts of violence in the inner city that he's done nothing about. He also claims that he was a fierce opponent of President Donald Trump. That's his campaign pitch. I'm for immigration reform. I'm for school. I'm for police justice reform. I'm for the legalization of marijuana because so many people have been arrested because of this drug and most of it for victimless offenses. This predominantly affecting the minority community. I'm for pushing for alternatives to abortion. I'm for funding adoption and giving women better opportunity to live a better life and keep their children rather than just killing them. Because in the United States, our fertility rates are low, and us in the African American community, we're killing ourselves more than we're actually replicating, right? And that's keeping us in our own type of depression. All these reasons are reasons why I feel that people should vote for me. And I would like for people to go check out the website, billy2020nj.com. You can find out a lot more of the other issues that I support. I'm just trying to wrap it up because I know you got a little bit of time.
Yeah, and so that was the final question. My question was, how can your supporters reach you? But you mentioned the website.
Bingo. There you go. billy2020nj.com. You guys can check that out. I also have a lot of videos under the media section. You can check out other interviews that I've done and even get a much better idea of what I stand for. If you want to talk to me on the contact page, you can send me an email. My phone number is also there. I pick up the phone to everybody. If you got a question, if you want to tell me you hate my guts, totally fine. We can have a conversation about that later.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. You answer my text.
I answer everybody's phone call.
Yeah. All right, Billy. Hey, it was a pleasure talking to you. On behalf of our channels, TV5, Mana TV International, Mana TV USA, we wish you all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Arun. Good to see you again. Keep the mustache too. I love it.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
All righty, brother. Take care.
That's all the time we have for tonight. Until next week, keep watching Mana TV TV5. Thank you very much. God bless America.